Okay, we're officially live for the inaugural CNG Roundtable Live here on YouTube. I'm Kat Johnson. I'm CNG Certification Specialist.
Okay,
and
we're officially live for the inaugural.
And I'm really excited to bring our farming community together in this new space to have farmer-to-farmer chats. I think that sharing information and thought processes is really fun and important because when we do that and we brainstorm together, we can really fortify the local food movement and empower our community to build resilient farms and hopefully resilient farmers too. So thank you all for being here today. And before I introduce our special guests and our topic, I'll do a little bit of housekeeping. One is to apologize for my technical glitches. This is all super new to me. And we're also broadcasting off a very rural internet. So the image is going to be a little blurry, and inherently in the live stream, what's happening in real time is about a minute before you actually see it on YouTube. So just bear that in mind and be patient. Hopefully nothing awful happens. The other thing is that we're going to use the chat a lot in this exchange. So start there and plop your name and your location in there and say hello. That can be a space where we share information because there's really awesome people on our panel, but there's also skilled farmers that are observing. So feel free to share your experiences. If you have something to add to the conversation, go for it and do that. The only thing, which I don't think I need to say to a group of farmers, is to remember to be kind and open-minded. So we're going to do this until 8 o'clock Eastern time, and if conversations are ongoing in the chat, I'll leave that open until they wrap up, but our guests will have to go right at 8, and afterwards a recording will be posted on our YouTube page. So let's bring in our special guests who have so kindly agreed to be here today to discuss and answer questions about farm season review tactics. So this is the topic of the day, and it's about the different ways that farm owners and managers, teams, or farm families can look back at their season, the 2021 season, and assess how it went, and of course, figure out what to change for the season ahead. So we will go around the room, and each of you can tell us who you are, where you're from, what you farm, maybe what scale, and the highlights of your farm season review process. The one person in the group that's not a farmer can interpret those questions a little bit differently. But let's go Carrie, Simone, Clay, and then I'll finish up with introductions.
Okay, my name is Carrie Chlebanowski. I am the owner-operator of the Looney Farm. We are in Ellick, Oklahoma, so we're about 45 minutes southwest of the Oklahoma City Metro. So I think actually we really sit on the line of like USDA Zone 7A, 7B. We currently, right now, have under cultivation that we're growing off of a half acre. We're getting ready to expand next year to 3/4 acre on premises, and then we're actually signing a lease on a new acreage around the corner from us that we found out about for some different crops. Yeah, I have 2 employees. One of them just went down to part-time, and then I have one full-time as well. I do live on site. We're wrapping up our 4th season, but that's always really weird to me because we grow year round. So it's just we just count the season January through December. So we've had a crazy year. I'm sure everybody has in 2021, but we do a lot of baby lettuce greens, baby root vegetables. We serve most of the year 2 markets, and then also some restaurants and a little bit of wholesale accounts as well. End of year is a mishmash of my technical Excel savvy husband's spreadsheets and us doing a lot of note taking with the employees. So we do involve our employees. So I hope to be able to talk about that some too.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. we'll get an intro from Simone next.
Great. I'm Simone from the Conscious Kitchen. So we're a prepared meal food delivery company. So farm to table. My partner Celeste started the business 2.5 years ago. She has a farming background and just figuring out how to translate that into like self-employment for her, just realizing that she didn't want to physically take on having to farm for her full income, so wanted to combine her passion for farming with her passion for cooking and food. And so that's where the Conscious Kitchen was born. And I joined part-time. I've been kind of with her throughout the whole process, but actually joined part-time doing deliveries and helping with prep 6 months ago. And we moved a year ago to the property that we are on now, which had a 1/4-acre farm plot. So hoping to, ramp up our farming to supply some of the produce for the business. And then we also source most of our produce from the farm that we were getting our CSA from. And so we're kind of taking most of their bumper crop and creating the dishes around that every week. And so
Oh no, she popped out for a minute. Come back to us, Simone.
You can do it.
Oh no. Okay, we'll circle back. We can move to you, Clay.
Okay. I'm Clay Brady. I manage and run Foster Brady Farm. It's a family farm outside of Athens, Georgia. And so I think I'm a lot like Carrie in that we've been about 5 years now running year-round production. So it all kind of gets massed into season by season. There's really never a downtime. We have currently 3.5 acres that comes in and out of production. We've got 6 hoop houses, so that really keeps us busy through the winter. Our main markets are CSA. I do not currently do a farmer's market right now, but we also supply to 3 to 5 restaurants with produce and eggs that we produce. So our record keeping is improving. I'd say a lot of it was just old handwritten notes, and so now we're trying to put more on the computer so that we can assess these things a lot easier. So that's kind of where we are now.
Thanks, Clay. Maybe we'll pick up where we lost Simone. You were just maybe finishing up about the Conscious Kitchen.
yeah, I think, oh, of course it happens, right? Right as I'm talking. Hey, perhaps you just lost me when I was just going to say that, yeah, we're located in Ontario, Canada, specifically Saugeen Ojibwe Nation territory.
Lovely. I'll introduce myself too. So I work for CNG part-time, and the rest of my time is spent managing a small farm here in Floyd, Virginia. It's a 1/4 acre, very, very tiny farm where I just started this year, and I specialize in salad-centric crops and also do a line of value-added products with prepared salads and salad dressings for subscription, and then wholesale, and mostly one farmer's market that I attend. So I'm a one-woman farm, and I'm in my first year, and I have to admit I haven't done my season review process yet, but I would like to assemble something that I can repeat year after year and have a similar metric to look back on. In my farming career to date, usually I've been managing farms for other farm owners, so I always went to great detail to prepare sort of like a presentation, like a state of the farm address, to say, here's how we did, here's what we're cutting, and here are the numbers. Like, every number you can imagine. So I want to be selective on what I adopt for my own personal process, because it is just me for now. So that's who I am and where I'm at. Do you guys want to dig into the questions we have submitted from our viewers? Some of our viewers did find us, so they're here. So what were your successes and proudest moments from this past season? Clay, do you want to kick us off?
So one big change for me was we started to use a program. I have to name plug here, but it's called Tend, to track our crops, what we were growing, when it was coming in and out of the field. So I think I'm about a week behind of the data that I need to plug into it, but I feel like that was a big success for us. As far as the crops go, I think I still probably wait for all the books to be finished to see which crop was valuable, but we did have a pretty good run of spring greens this year. So those can be in Georgia to have a good long season of greens. So
nice. That seems like it's going to be a big help when you go back to look at all those numbers, that it's all in one place.
Oh yeah, and it's got a visual aspect that I like too. It's not just like spreadsheets. It does. I wouldn't really call it a graph, but it gives you a visual of the field. So that's been nice.
Yeah, that is great. How about you, Carrie? Successes or proudest moments from the season? What comes to your mind?
So I'm going to go on the same line that Clay did. So I've actually used Tend. I actually rotated off of Tend for various reasons, but I really liked the visual aspect that he's talking about. So I do appreciate that. But I have managed, thanks to my employees in large part, we have, again, have been able to, we use just some Google Sheets that we basically have just set up that look like our plots. Like we have 4 cat tunnels, and each of those has 4 beds. So we have 4 different pages for each tunnel, and then the dates go on the side. And we've managed to actually basically keep that up to date, like he said, with the different crops that are going in and what's coming out. That's one of our biggest hurdles that we ran into this beginning of the year, and that I was trying to figure out a way to do is with Oklahoma's insane weather, and I'm sure everybody has similar things in the South especially, but our shoulder seasons can be just, you never know what you're going to get. And so for me, in terms of planning for seed orders and things, knowing how long things are in the ground in those shoulder seasons compared to, the height of the season, when it's, those lettuce mixes are in there 4 weeks and then they're out. But October, November, that can start changing rapidly. And so being able to have that data was huge. And so I was really proud of us for, we missed a few weeks, but I think we could fill those in with the data we have. Just looking back, sales wise, I had set a pretty high goal for us this year. I had expected to have that another 1/4 acre plot opened up, and we ended up just leaving it under tarp because of Bermuda. But we, on a 1/2 acre, managed, I think, only go 2 weeks without our lettuce mix over the summer. And I do have, and I can, if anybody wants to talk, my husband is an Excel guy, so I have every single crop because he's ridiculous with the data. So I can tell you my top 20 crops, and we've done, and sales numbers. But just this year already, we've done over $22,000 just in lettuce mix alone at markets and online. So that's something I'm really excited about, because that's huge to be able to have that consistency and have those kinds of numbers on a single crop. So
yeah, I think that's kind of what I was building my business around when I started my new salad-centric business, was that kind of thing, that there is a following for it every week. I just have to be that person and get to do that. I think for me this season, having I have a little truck, but I had a full truck every week for market. So that was like, it felt good. It was like, I'm in business. I didn't like sign up for something and not be able to follow through and fill a tent every week. That was a really big thing for me, and being able to do this full time. So I just like went full time right in the springtime, and I haven't looked back. So that feels really good. Yeah.
I guess I'll jump in there.
Yeah.
And it's definitely super awesome to see what you're doing, Kat, and your growth. And Carrie, you mentioned Google Sheets. We love Google Sheets. We like do everything on Google Sheets. So yeah, I'd say like the big milestones from this year were, I'd say, well, myself joining the team, and then we also were able to hire another full-time employee. So if you think like last year this time, Celeste was doing everything on her own. I truly don't know how she was doing it, but I mean, to see like where we are now, and there's a small team, and it's really fun on our cooking, prepping days. It's crazy, but we listen to podcasts, and it's a lot of fun to be doing this together. So obviously, yeah, to have our sales at a point where we can have basically 3 full-time employees is pretty great. And yeah, Carrie, you mentioned kind of sharing sales numbers, and we really like to be transparent with things because we think that's really important. So I guess we hit our sales. I think we're on track to hitting our year 3 sales goal, which was $350,000. So that's a pretty big deal and pretty exciting. So yeah. And happy to share like, awesome. Any other financials as well, because that can be, yeah.
Yeah, I think
I agree.
Vagaries can
I think that's great, Simone. Yeah, I think it's one of those things that's, it's all gross numbers. I mean, none of us are getting rich doing this. But I think it is important because I know that's something that was important for me is like, what's the potential? And sometimes there's some backlash when some of the bigger name farmers mention their numbers, and that gets brought back to, oh, they're doing teaching and training and things. And so I think it's important to say, no, it's possible. You have to have systems, and it can look different, but.
Yeah. So my next question, it is a question from me actually. So everyone in my first year of business, they come to me and they say, congratulations on a successful farm year. And I think to myself, maybe because I'm bad at accepting a compliment, I think, what do you know? How do you know it was a success? So I think I want to sort of unpack that and like, well, what is a success? When you're looking back at what you did, because you did a million things in your farming season, in your business, what do you declare a success? What data are you looking at? Is it a certain margin? Is it just that you set a goal and you follow through? How do you decide which column to put that in? Does anyone want to jump on that question?
Well, I think one of the things recently that I saw was I have a lot of turnover with workers, and right now I'm dealing with 2 part-timers who are going into their 2nd year, and seeing how the increase in efficiency changes when that's happening. So there's a lot less explaining, and on the back end, when we have a bed that's harvested, you can see it on the data sheets where it's like things come in faster and there's more of it at the same time. So I think that's just like you're building on some knowledge in your crew, and you can see that almost immediately. So that's one that I've seen recently, at least.
Yeah, my husband and I were just talking actually yesterday about, we brought on the employees, and we had some part-time people last summer, but both of my employees have now been with me a full year. And so like the point of hiring them, and he said, okay, do you feel like you're accomplishing what you wanted to this year in terms of like the work family balance? That was a big thing for us. I have 3 teenagers. So actually 2 of them are still teenagers. One's 20 left in the house. And so we really wanted to spend more time, kind of be more cognizant of like, when they leave, I'm done with the farm for the day when my employees leave. And there's some give and take. I mean, there's been some medical stuff that's gone on. So there's been, I've had to work a little bit more on some days than I wanted to. But I think the flexibility of knowing, like being able to say at the beginning of the year, this is what I want to have accomplished. This is what I want to be able to do. And being able to look back to, was I able to do that? I was able to take time off to go be with my family and not have to worry about the farm falling to pieces or not being able to get to market. My husband and I actually last month went on a week-long vacation. We did come back before market just because of our online system. He has to do that at this point. But we were gone for basically Sunday through Thursday. They did everything from field prep to harvest to preparations. We literally showed up and packed orders within Friday and went to market, and it went without a hitch. And so to me, that felt like a really successful thing. Like I know that I have a team that I don't have to worry about not being able to be here, that they're going to be able to take care of what needs to be taken care of.
Yeah, that's huge. And not only in a vacuum, but in a year where everyone's having a really hard time getting good farm workers. So that's big.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree that like the work-life balance, I guess it's a bit of a buzzword, but it's so important to us. So for us, we really success in the business for us is like hitting, it's our own kind of personal income goals, I guess, in a way, and then that of our employees, like offering good employment and good wages to our employees. So for us, it's like the business is a vehicle in order to kind of create that life where we can take that week off in August, or, in future, we'd like to take a little bit more time off and just offer the employees the same. So, success this year is just being able to, offer a full-time job to our employee. And then we're starting to like get closer to kind of that goal. Well, I guess this year for the first time we were like the business was able to like pay us. So before, my full-time job was what was supporting us, and I was kind of supporting Celeste growing the business. And this year I quit my full-time job as we speak. The Conscious Kitchen is paying both of our salaries, and we're ramping up our business coaching so that I can hopefully, spend more time in that as well. But yeah, the fact that like we are both actually able to kind of live and have like the business support that is success to us. There's a lot of like values and like non-negotiables in the business that are obviously also, success to us, being able to like buy from local farmers, support them, zero waste, like feeding families plant-based foods. Like these are all really important things to us, but those are kind of the non-negotiables.
I love that. This kind of touches on one of the questions on our list. It was, how do you assess non-data related parts of farming, which are the community elements, the emotional well-being, the family life, because you're not going to be recording anything. Maybe in your diary you are, but looking back on a season, it can be a lot of feelings. So to look back on it as one thing can be hard, but I think that is what's going to keep us going, is if overall it's a positive trend toward balance or a better life or a more connected life, maybe. Yeah. How about the reverse of that question is, what data points do you look at when you're looking back on your season?
Those margins.
The margins. What do you look for?
ways to, I think for us this year is we're still looking for those efficiencies, like how do we get faster at harvesting? I feel like we've been pretty good in looking at data points and determining like what crops to grow. Like some of those things, I will forever tell people all day long, I'm sorry, I'm not growing tomatoes anymore. It's just, I can't make it work. I just can't. There's enough other people that want to do it. I'd rather grow other things and have my employees like to be here. Same thing with green beans. We won't grow bush beans again. I have sworn up and down. In fact, today my employees were going through seeds and they're like, we've got some beans. And I was like, hey, well, we can keep them and sell those as starter plants at the beginning of the season, but we're still not doing beans again. So those kinds of things. I think looking at the sales data is important to be able to. My husband's trying to, we're trying to figure out a way. He's trying to automate a system for us to get more detailed, even, because everything, supply chain costs are going up. Our clamshells, I'm sure people on this call, if they do clamshells, it's been a nightmare trying to deal with that and having to just be flexible because the price of those has jumped from like 50 cents a piece to 80 cents a piece, and now they're gone. You can't find them. So that makes things, so being able to just he's really dialed in. Like literally my husband is a data analyst at his day job. So I'm really, really, really fortunate that I have him because I tend to just be like, just get it in the ground. Just get it in the ground and we'll get it out. And but he keeps me in a serious place of looking at like, hey, this crop is not wise for us to grow anymore. And that's hard when you're at market and you have the cute, customer, like the sweet old lady who's like, what, you're not going to grow that anymore? And I'm like, listen, I'm sorry. I love it too. I love to eat that. I can't make it make sense. I mentioned this on just about every discussion group I'm in. And I think one of our big things, and I think more and more in the small farm industry, I'm seeing it, is this is a business that happens to be a farm. And I think that's huge. I think you have to look at those numbers. It's not fun. I would so much be rather playing in the dirt right now. And this time of the year, even with the wind and the cold. But those numbers, that's what keeps us able to pay our employees, is knowing what I should and shouldn't be growing. So that's a big, we look at it a lot. Sometimes my husband just comes in and says, okay, this is stupid. You can't do this anymore. I'm like, okay.
It does.
I have a question for you, Carrie. I'm just building on that. I guess what types of crops, I guess you mentioned you had like the top 20. So what are those types of crops and kind of why do you think they're the top, or like why do you like growing this?
Why do I like growing the lettuce mix? We do the Saldanova blend, which is just, it can handle the Oklahoma heat. It can handle the cold, so everything. And that's really what I got started in. So that's there was nobody in the Oklahoma City area doing that. So we really got our foot in the door with that. So that's what we're known for. And then kind of like Kat, we're trying to do the salad centric things. Like what else can go with that? So a lot of the baby root vegetables. Lettuce mix is our number one. Carrots is number 2. Radishes is my number 4 item. And I will grow radishes all day. It's like the easiest crop ever. And what?
So it's like picking up a dime every time you pick one,
It's crazy. And I'm growing Crunchy King, which I know everybody loves Rover. I had the hardest time with Rover out here for whatever. They split. Those Crunchy Kings, I'm not kidding you guys. I grow them sometimes in the summertime the size of a potato. And they don't get pithy. They don't split. They don't get dry. They're amazing. And people come to market and they fly. I can sell 60 to 70 bunches of radishes at a market just because they're beautiful and they taste good. And people coming back for them. So I just laughed when I saw that because, that's number 4 in revenue. So that radishes are making that much money is incredible. Broccolini is another big one for us. And then the baby bok choy, arugula, turnips, shishito peppers. And then we do like a mix of lettuce mix and other salad greens. And that's our number 10. So yeah, it's down to the bottom, like eggplants, not growing full-size eggplants anymore because that made me $228 this year. Nope, not worth the time. And that's a crop that, you start in the greenhouse and the nursery and you have to baby and, you deal with aphids and all those things. So that was an easy no for next year. Did I answer your question?
It did. Yeah, I have lots of others, but we'll keep
So Clay, do you look at those top sellers, or are you looking at your overall veggie sales and cost of goods? Or are you breaking it down by crop? What do you do?
So the majority of our sales goes out through a CSA, and so it's I guess our attempt is to try and add as much diversity within that CSA over the course of it's 38 weeks plus a winter added. It's basically 50 weeks out of the year. We take 2 weeks off to kind of like restructure and get things in order. So I'm really shooting for, of course, repeats within the bag throughout the year, but 7 to 10 items that kind of go back and forth throughout the season. So we do pick. I guess it's more of like the type of lettuce that we would choose not to grow because it takes a lot more effort. We've gone to head lettuce because it's so much easier. We've streamlined some types of things like types of eggplant that work really good for us and others that don't. So we just don't really do a lot of trials in that area. But I don't have the spreadsheet in front of me, but I think it's almost 100 different crops, if you count 4 or 5 different types of kales and other things. But that being said, some crops are, cherry tomatoes, for instance, can last the whole season, but like Carrie kind of alluded to, you spend a lot of time chasing after cherry tomatoes. So we have used the numbers in the past to determine, hey, let's do cherry tomatoes, but on a much smaller scale. And we'll fill in the rest of our needs with something else. But like Carrie said, she was able to get on vacation. My wife and I are planning to leave town right after Christmas. So that will be another test for our workers is how do they, for 10 days, how do they manage issues? And I think maybe my farm is in some type of Bermuda Triangle, but if I leave, it seems something breaks. So I've already explained how to turn gas off, how to shut a water line down. We don't really get that many cold days in Georgia, but it seems like if we leave town, something's going. So it's always fun, but that's the test. We'll see how well I've trained them and how resilient they are.
And then fate will come into play. Have you guys heard of the Veggie Compass as a tool to look at your crops individually? That's what I've used in the past. It requires some really good records. So in my farm manager roles, I used to have all my employees time everything they did, and we would log our hours by crop. And then there's a whole series of videos that goes with the Veggie Compass. It's like a master spreadsheet, and it'll break down your profit by crop with that labor entered. And then it'll even extract your market channels and tell you selling broccolini to the CSA is profitable. Selling it to the wholesale isn't working because your labor number is this and your cost of production is this. And it was so terrifying to do that the first time I did it, because you'll see how far in the negative some of the margins are. So it's really easy when the margin's negative to get something off of there. But one question I have for Simone is okay, so what is my goal margin? what do you guys as farmers think of as your goal margins? And you know, it's not just data, it's usually a story that goes with the data. Like, well, garlic was like that because we planted it in a place where we couldn't get the tractor to, and so it was all hand weeding that year, and it's not going to be like that next year. You know, there's always a reason, but for me, when I look at my data, I want to have that threshold number to look for. What do you think, Simone?
Yeah, we've definitely, so we, I guess, know what we want our gross margin to be. And then, so I think because this is one of the reasons why we chose, I guess, prepared meals, because there is such a good margin on prepared meals, because you're cooking, like, people will pay, you know, that premium to have you basically cook and assemble their meal for them fresh, right? So, just looking at like the ingredients and packaging, our margin, so I guess that's cost. The cost is 15%. So I guess our margin's 85%. And then when you're looking, and then we take into account our labor and all the other, you know, overhead expenses. So I guess our profit margin, because it's just easier to like compare, our profit margin is 30% on what we're selling. So there's and so basically out of that profit margin is what we're paying ourselves or reinvesting back in the business. So yeah, there's good profit margin on prepared foods. One of the reasons we've chosen to go into it and kind of compete with the bigger bad guys, I guess you could say. That's at least how we think about it, right? Let's not compete with kind of farmers, let's compete with like the HelloFreshes and everything like that. So those are margins. And so we kind of know, I guess, because it's prepared meals and we have some flexibility each week in what we're buying, we kind of know, you know, like we want to spend, let's say, like $1,000 on ingredients. And so we're looking, like our farm is sending us what they have, and Celeste is like picking and choosing based on kind of that $1,000 goal or mark. And so, if cauliflower is expensive, maybe we'll buy cauliflower because we really want it, but then offset that with like a less expensive kind of crop that week. So we're kind of changing our menu based on the seasons and costs and things like that to kind of consistently hit that margin. So that's like kind of a nice part about the flexibility of a menu and of kind of a seasonal type business like that. But yeah, and then just week over week, we're tracking sales the most closely to see, do we need to do a little bit more like marketing and advertising to get like our sales goals up, that kind of thing. So week over week, that's really what we're looking at. Everything else kind of stays somewhat consistent.
That's wonderful. As a comparison, so when I'm looking at my cost of goods and my gross sales, my cost of goods, when I looked at it, was 50% of my gross sales. And I'm doing a mix of prepared items, you know, and raw vegetables, just produce. So I looked at that and I was like, well, I don't even know what to compare this to. And I still need to extract out my raw produce and my farm products from my value-added products to compare. Do you guys have any sense of where you're at on your farms?
Not where I want to be. Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, there's so many stories that go into it. Like, you know, we're in that area where we had 2 whole weeks where we were below zero. And, you know, I managed to keep this stuff in the nursery alive. So all of my transplants and things were fine in there. But everything in the field was toast, with the exception of the carrots that were overwintering. So they weren't ready for harvest, but it didn't kill them off. So we had to, basically start from scratch. So not only did I have 2 weeks of no income, I had to still pay my employees. Like I couldn't, like it wasn't, I think we actually paid them the first week full time. And then the second week they were okay with us like paying them half. because they wanted to take some time. It was, Oklahoma, Texas was a disaster zone. So that's hard. And then, you lose crops. I think my goal, and this is probably high, I'm trying to give myself some flexibility because I'm still growing and trying to figure out employees and stuff. I think we were trying to stay under 25% with employee payroll. I would like to pay myself more too. But I'm in a position where I'm okay not bringing home a huge check. I do take home some every month for the most part. But that's less important to me than being able to make sure my employees have a consistent, decent wage. I'd like that to go up, honestly. I don't think I pay them as much as I want to, as much as I could or should. It's just I can't right now. And that's, I think, coming into play with like the price of the cost of goods sold, like we talked about the packaging and just everything. I need new plastic on cat tunnels next year. And that's shopping for that was disheartening, to say the least, when you see what those prices have done. So that's the kind of thing that plays into everything. I have to figure that. I mean, that's what my husband gets down to the nitty gritty. Like, okay, well, the crops that are grown under a cat tunnel have a different cost of good than things that are grown in the field. And I'll be honest, you guys, that's his thing. Let's just grow it. Like if I have a general idea, I'm good. So he's very helpful in breaking those down. And we're probably going to have a big sit down next week, I think.
Yep. I'm there too. That sounds very familiar. So I'm also more of the hey, we want to eat carrots and in November, like, all right, August, this is what I have to do, make it happen. I know with our farm, it sounds very familiar. My wife has a steady full-time job. And so that makes my take-home pay very flexible. And so the farm is a hungry beast, and it will eat up those margins. And so it will eat like everything you can throw at it. We've, again, optimistic here, but we've really tried to get our employee pay makes up about 30% of the gross money coming in. But that is wildly flexible based on what's coming in. We try to put a little bit away for rainy days, but crop failures are, if I want to have 10 crops, I really need to have like 12 to 15. That gives me the buffer from things going south on a few. Then you're assured that you're going to have 10. But I'd say the margins are they fluctuate wildly based on how good the year's going.
So I have a change of gears question. When I would have a team of people, and you guys all work with teams, whether small or large, and going over sort of the successes and the failures of the year, I always felt like it's a hard conversation to have sometimes because there's so much that happens. If you guys involve your team, how do you do that in order to make it a productive conversation? Because it can become a laundry list. So how do you steer that? How do you design that space?
Well, we have a beer.
A bear? Oh, a stuffed bear?
A beer. We open some beers. No, I mean, really, we do sometimes. There's been a lot of times when it's like, when it's the heat of the season, for us, data has been huge. So we kept a little notebook, and I'll be honest, this kind of got abandoned after the heat of the season, but it was very, very helpful. Like where we just wrote down like great things or like things that need to change. And we actually kept track of like the temperature every day, which I know we can go back and access easily, but that was huge. Like, I think, and my employees are both female. We get along really, really well. They're almost like my kids love them. They're best friends. so like, we'll write things and we'll joke and we have a message. But I think they understand that I want them to have investment in here. They're not just workers here. Like I want them to have investment and to have some decision making in some of the things where we can. That I value their input. And I think that's hard. That's good. And I also tell them, like any critique that I give to you is ultimately a criticism on myself. Like first, like I hold myself ultimately responsible for everything, because if you're doing something wrong, more than likely it's because I didn't communicate clearly what I expected of you, or what I needed. And so I think that helps. It is hard. I mean, I just recently, and this is super personal, but here we are. I have ADHD and I have not been medicated for it in years. And I started noticing just in comments and in reactions and just in demeanor and just morale that was really starting to affect them, because I just get scattered and there's so much going on. And so I was like, this isn't fair to them. And so I was like, guys, I'm getting back on medication. And you could just see their faces. Like the first couple of days when I had my medicine, they were like, oh, wow, okay, this is different. And that's something that, that's a hard thing for me to admit. Nobody wants to admit that they need to do something difficult. But I think it's important to just listen and, I don't know, I could go on.
Do your employees end up advising some of the changes that you'll be making next season?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, there's been a couple of crops that I was like, I don't want to grow that. And they're like, we need to keep going on that. I just lost the light. Sorry, guys. It's fine. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and talking about like placement of certain crops in the grounds, like, hey, like this isn't going to work. That soil is not going to grow that crop well. That's just going to create more headaches. Different packaging things. We've talked about some of those kinds of stuff. One of the big things we're having to discuss this next year is just, again, with the cost, is price increases. Like, how do we do that respectfully of our customers, but also keeping like those margins in mind. I hate that. I hate having to, and then how do we do that? Because we grow year round. So literally like 1 week people are going to come to market and the prices are all going to be different. So trying to get their input on those has been great.
And we have a pretty open dialogue with the workers. So like we're constantly going over things that we like. Either we like growing or we like eating ourselves. And then, so with, and I'm sure you get a lot of this at farmers markets too, but with our CSA, you've got a real direct line to a customer. And so one common thing that's often said is like about August or September is everyone's like, hey, I've had enough eggplant, And so, but then there's others that are like, oh, I love eggplant. I can't get enough of it. So there's always some feedback with the crops in that regard to give us kind of like, are we headed in the right direction, or have we overloaded someone with something? The way our workday works out, we usually have like lunchtime's around 12, and there's usually about 30 minutes so the beginning of the day where we're kind of figuring out our chores, we're cleaning things that we need. So the conversation is really loose then, as far as like maybe what someone did over the weekend or a new dish that they cooked, some food with. And so I try to encourage, like, if you're thinking of it on that day, let me know. That way it's not, oh, I meant to tell you my arms break out in hives whenever I'm harvesting the celery or something. And it's like, oh, well, wish you would have told me that. So we can kind of work those things out. So I'm constantly getting feedback from either the CSA customer or the workers themselves about how things are going.
Seems way better that way, right? Because then it's not like, oh, finally doing an end of the season survey either to your members or to your employees, and whoa, life's going to be totally different now, and there's a million things I need to change, when those small adjustments can be less earth-shattering.
Yep.
I think too, like for us, because we have a CSA. It's a free choice, called our Buyers Club. So we actually just started sending out the end of year reviews and opened it up for next year, because they get the first week to do that. And it is, I think I agree with Clay, having those communications and those open dialogues throughout the season, especially with your members, makes it a lot easier when you get a review back and it's maybe not a positive review in every area. If you know who it's coming from, I mean, not that you don't take it seriously, but I mean, we all know there's sometimes a customer that can be more problematic when they're the only one out of, 75 or 100 people having a technical issue. That's probably not your website's problem. And so being able to not like be crushed when you get the review and you're like, what? Somebody's unhappy. And I think, but also conversely, being able to say, okay, this may be something we need to address if multiple people are doing it. You probably have had that discussion before with somebody, so it's not new news.
I think that's great.
Yeah.
To pick up. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, it can go a long way too if you hear, someone's favorite thing are your radishes, and then you can like slip them an extra radish.
Right.
It's that really, that's what people will like. Remember that, oh, you're listening to my my criticism. So nice.
Something I think I don't think we do it well, and it's something I've been wanting to intend to do better, and that is soliciting customer feedback. I think like we email our customers, and sometimes informally they'll give us kind of positive or negative feedback, but we've never done it formally, and always kind of struggled with how do we do this so that it doesn't, just feel too formal, too rigid, but maybe that's what people want. They just want to be asked. And so I'd be curious to see, what is, do you get a good response rate on your customer surveys? And do you feel like it's a good way of getting their feedback? Are they kind of, how you're addressing that feedback, how you're incorporating it into the business? I mean, we only have 10 minutes, but it is something I am curious to hear perspectives. I guess I'll quickly answer the employee question, giving feedback. And I feel I've had a really good mentor in my previous boss, who is really, really transparent with the numbers of the business and throughout the good and the bad. And there was, for the past 2 years, it was pretty rocky. The business was pretty rocky. And I think that's why she started sharing the numbers, because she wanted, us to understand maybe why we weren't getting a raise, right? To understand, the business is in this shape, and we all kind of she was taking most of the responsibility, 100%, but it's we all just, took, need to take some responsibility or just understand where things were. So one, understanding, if, why maybe we weren't getting a raise, but also kind of giving us, I think, that knowledge to make informed decisions for ourselves. So, one employee did leave because she had 2 kids and she couldn't risk, something happening at her job. So she was able to make that decision for herself. So I kind of look up to that old boss as something that I want to do in this business, is, being really transparent, the good and the bad. So employees can make their informed choices.
I love that.
No, I think, Simone, in terms of the surveys, we've done surveys just on Instagram, and those aren't always great. We don't get as great of information from those. This survey is specifically going out to just our Buyers Club members, and it was more geared towards their happiness with the membership program for the year. So it's not so much something we've done. I haven't ever done it formally on a larger scale than that. I probably should. Maybe we'll look at doing that this year since we've got it. And we've managed to get something like 700 people on our email list. I don't know what the open rate is on those. That's my husband will be able to tell you that, but I would say do it. I think people like to share. People like to tell their good experiences, also if they're bad. I mean,
Yeah.
You get a lot of both ends of that spectrum. I mean, that's just the way it is. The most passionate people are the ones that are going to reach out, but
right.
you can maybe fall somewhere in the middle with what you think most people are enjoying or not.
I've got another question from the people watching. So it goes back to when we were talking about our numbers, and the question is, have you factored in debt repayment into your margins, and what percentage of your gross income do you allocate to debt repayment? I do know because I've been looking at this for myself. So when I was talking about my gross margin, that was just like the direct cost to produce the product, and then the amount I collected when I sold that product. So my direct costs were 50% of my total gross, and then my overhead will come out of what's left of that. So that's where my loan payment is. And what percentage of my gross income is that? Oh, it's 5% this year, but I don't have a lot of gross income. So I made, I grossed 55,000. My expenses, were probably in the 20,000 range. And my loan payment this year was about $3,000 on a 7-year loan for all my startup expenses. So that's where that is, which is huge for me because that made me get started. I wouldn't have had any other way of getting going.
Sorry, I'm doing some fast math off the top of my head.
Hopefully my mental math was right.
Right?
I guess while you're doing that, I don't have exact numbers. So we basically, when we're looking at like taking out debt, because we have taken out a few loans and just kind of enhanced some credit card spend, we are always factoring in, okay, for like the loan, for example, I think we got a $10,000 loan last year. And so we wanted to pay it off in 1 year. I think it was like a 2-year loan payback, and it was like a 0% interest loan. So it's through like a social enterprise. So it was it was a good situation. So we looked into our profit margin and just said, each month, like, what do we have left over either each month to chip away and pay it back within a year? Do we have like that $1,000 a month? Or I guess another way to look at it was, by the end of that year, would we have that $10,000 to pay it back? So definitely before taking out the loan, what we do is look, okay, when do we expect to be able to pay it back? And we want to make sure we can do it if we're going to take it.
Yeah. And I think that's more of the approach we've done too. Like I have one current loan right now, which is fairly minimal. And next year we're probably going to look at that. But that's the thing. Like we do we've done the FSA microloan in the past, and that was always the big thing. It's like an annual payment. So what's that going to break down over the course of a month? Because over the month by month, because I don't want to have a huge ginormous loan payment due and have to figure out coming up. I want to make sure that I have that well in advance. And to be honest, like that's one of the big things for us. We kind of allocate that amount of money out of our when we do our buyers club, open up that we run that through the end of December, middle of December. We just opened it up, and it'll run until probably the 1st of April when the buyers club opens. And so out of that money, we designate the loan payment already out of that. That's not even usable for anything else. Now there's some give and take. There's a couple times because the loan payment's not due till the end of the year. So that if we keep that in a separate account, an escrow account, so to speak. And then if we know that we can get back in, we might take out of that a little bit. But for the most part, we try to keep that separate because I don't want to play with the government. Sorry, my light just went off. I don't want to play with the government. Like, they're really great at giving away money, but they're really great at taking it back too. Sorry, I was trying to do some math. just off the, like, it looks like we're at about 8%, just over 8% total in revenue from this year, where our payment was.
Okay,
So,
that's pretty similar.
and I'll say we are on the half acres so far to date, just in vegetable revenue, we are at, where's it at? Oh, this is a tiny number, you guys. Hold on, I have my old lady glasses. We're at 90, just over 90,000. So I know, right? It's crazy to me. Not the number I wanted, but for half an acre, that feels really good. And knowing, like, I mean, anybody here can relate. I had 3 beautiful beds of carrots that I put in a bed. I ignored my employee and put them in a bed, and they became tillage carrots. So that was a lot of revenue that did not come into my pocket, but made the soil better. So it's a trade.
Yeah, so I heard Carrie kind of allude to part of our situation too, or I guess a common feature is that our CSA is like a micro loan that you get at the beginning of the year. Without the interest is going to be your sweat. And so our farm right now also, we're not carrying any debt with the farm, although that's going to change. And so I don't really know how I can, or I know I can't tonight, give you any kind of a percentage of how much debt that will be. But we need to build a new barn, so it's going to probably be substantial. But hopefully, the hardest year will be that building year, where you got to pay for the building, but you don't quite have it yet. But the way the CSA, the great thing about the CSA model is if you have enough interested people, you can get a huge chunk of your income at the beginning of the year before you've had to invest in all of these inputs. So you can it's almost like having a debit card where you can just, money comes in and you can just start to spend it. But you do have to be careful that you don't spend it all, so that by the time you get down to your last months, you can pay, all your expenses, being down to the labor and the gas and utilities and all those things that you really don't know what the cost will be when they get there. We're talking about packaging goods, but I'm filling up 2 trucks about twice a week, and those fill ups can be wildly different prices. Sometimes $30 to $40 difference. Maybe not week to week, but maybe month to month. Like I said earlier, the farm can be a hungry beast if you let it. So our goal has always been to limit that debt load over the course of the season. In our circumstance, we're lucky that sometimes I can just say, well, let's just finish paying the loan off instead of me getting the money. But that's our situation. That's unique to maybe just a few people.
Well, you guys, we've reached the end of our time. It's been so great talking with you guys. I wish we could go on. Does anyone have any final thoughts that they want to sneak in here before we wrap it up? You guys are great. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
So that's the end of our first CNG Roundtable. We'll do this again the second Monday of each month with a new topic and new special guests. But everyone in the room is clapping and they're grateful for you. You just can't see them. So yeah, I'm going to close out our live stream. If you guys want to know more about upcoming events, you can always go to naturallygrown.org and see what we have planned. I wish all the farmers watching a wonderful wonderful, focused, clear, decisive farm season review process. And we'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, Cap. See ya.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.